Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of Shirim on the Torah of today, where we attempt to excavate an inner space in which we can retrieve the capacity of being human by slowing down the response time, by extending that very, very thin territory between the stimuli and the response. We create for ourselves pockets of Bechira, moments of awareness, moments of the capacity to choose. And by reflecting on the ways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, as given to us by our tzaddikim, and reflecting on those elements in our own lives in the secret of Me Besari Echazeh, that from my own lived experience I come to behold the processes in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself in the here and now, in my mind, in my heart, in my body, in all elements of presence and consciousness in this moment, with the neshama trying to attach to its source. That this becomes the point of convergence. This becomes the point of our encounter with the deepest form of dveikus, of being ourselves fully connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the moment. And the first steps that we've had to take are backwards, of reattuning ourselves to the notion of constriction and limitation, and what it means to withhold the self and to overcome the childish infantile notion that if I withhold the self, then I'm denying myself of part of myself, which sees withholding as an absence, as something that makes something empty, which is a negative thing, and reorienting ourselves to the true nature of what Tzimtzum is, to the true nature of the koach of withholding, the strength to hold back, the strength to remain internal, even when one is externalizing themselves, the ability to maintain that very slight edge of bechira, even within the chaos. It takes a reorientation to what withdrawal is. Withdrawal no longer represents an absencing, but rather a concealing, a revelation of concealment. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to say, reveals this wondrous capacity to limit the infinite nature of himself, so as to give shape to the apparent appearance of something that is opposite of him. And so too within the self, we have to cultivate and utilize and strengthen our utilization of those kochos of gevura within the self, to overcome the natural tendency to flood the self with expression and then to just burst forth outwards, but rather to hold back, and to see holding back not as an act of absence, but as the furthering of a presence, as the deepest way in which we connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by setting limits, by coming to terms with the limitations of what it means to be a human being prior to engaging in the day. And then we spoke about how after that Tzimtzum process, we also have to be fundamentally aware that we're not now operating from a place of scarcity. It's not that Hashem removes his infinite light, we remove the infinite light of our neshama, and therefore we're left with a finite amount of koach. Because that would be taking the tzimtzum literally. That would be looking at the absencing and the removal, so to say, of that infinite possibility as something that leaves an actual void in its place. And when there's a void, there's only a certain amount of content that fills it. And when there's a limited amount of content, so then a person is already within the trappings of scarcity and late-stage capitalistic, anxiety-driven madness. And so we had to correct and fundamentally understand the true essence of what we know we can't even know about the tzimtzum, which is that the tzimtzum is not kipshuto. Removal is never actual removal. Just as God cannot truly remove himself because God is everything, even his own absence, so to say, so too the soul can never extricate itself fundamentally from the mind because the soul is the essence of the mind. And we can't be mitzamsem ourselves entirely. The soul persists, which means that the everything revealed at every moment always exists. The fount of the mind, the nahar hayotzim ye'eden, that nehiru de that wisdom, that flow of wisdom that saturates the mind at any given moment, when a person can attach themselves to Or Ein Sof, it's still there. And so how do we now function when we're meant to feel that there's absence? We're meant to feel that I have to set a limit for myself. But we're also taught to understand deeply that all limitations are not absencing, they're not emptying, but rather they're a withholding. They're a way of holding that light. But what happens to that expression? So we came upon the notion of the Rishimu, of the irreducible trace of godliness. That the Rishimu, the irreducible trace that remains after the infinite capacity has removed itself, that's the answer as to how there can be infinite possibility with finite expression at the same time. that the Rishimu reveals that everything is fully revealed, it's just concealed. It's condensed into an irreducible drop of itself, a quintessential expression of itself that has come down to this moment in which a person is able to experience the entirety of all things. The Rishimu means that even though there's only one thing that I'm focusing on right now, that even though I can't focus on everything and I can't open myself up to all of the movements and the shifts of day-to-day thinking or anxiety or hope or expectation, I have to be mitzamsem. I have to focus in on one particular thing. But the secret of the Rishimu, of the irreducible trace, is that when I'm focusing in on this one individual thing, I'm actually experiencing the entirety of all things. That's the nakuda of the Rishimu, that quintessential drop of experience that holds everything. So yes, there was a tzimtzum, but the tzimtzum is only there to the degree that I'm not going to be experiencing things by way of limitlessness. I'm going to be experiencing things by way of limitation, one particular thing, as we said. The only way to function in this world, in the day to day, in the hour to hour, in the minute to minute, and moment to moment, is by keeping the thing in front of us right in front of us, and how this becomes a paradigm of what it means to have das. That if I'm thinking about something before or after, then I've lost contact with that which is most essential. And we've stressed that this hyper focus on the present moment is not to deny past or future, God forbid, as if all that exists is the eternal now, Rahman al-Islam, from this das, but rather the past and the future are folded into the very moment itself. The name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Havaya, Haya Hoy V'Vihiyah. That doesn't mean there's no past or future. There's a bond between every previous moment and every future moment by way of this moment. It just means that the past orientation and the future orientation are folding themselves around and giving shape to this present moment itself. And so we have to focus in on everything that is revealed in this moment. So that's what we've gotten up to so far. That when we're attaching ourselves with das, when we're focusing in, B'chol derachecha de'ehu, that everything is right here, right now, and all I need to do is be mitzamsem my mind to that nakuda of the Rishimu, that irreducible point of conscious contact with the world in attentive and intentional states. When I attach that to this moment in front of me, Hayom, the Torah of today, the Torah of right now, so then I'm experiencing my world and my days. I'm experiencing everything. And in that way, I'm no longer operating from a position of scarcity. When I begin to try and do something throughout the day, when I try and utilize my strengths, my spiritual, psychological strengths, the development of new coping mechanisms, new kalim for faith to reveal the playfulness of faith and the endless unfolding nature of God's infinite nature, so to say. So the more and more I do that, the more kalim, the more vessels I create to draw the light of Tainug down, the tachlis of being in this world, to draw the pleasure of faith down into our experience. We're no longer operating from a place of scarcity. Anytime I'm attaching myself to something, it's the entirety of the world. And when that moment is done, the moment ends, and I move on to the next moment. And in that moment, it's as saturated and as whole and as full. There's the 5 unfolding worlds in each and every moment. So it's attaching myself to something specific, but by way of plenitude, that everything is present within this individual thing. And that has to be the mindset. That has to be the mindset that we have as we enter into our days. Our mindset has to be that I am facing this day with infinite koach. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is my partner. Because I come from my parents and I come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Chazal tell us. And each and every person must draw down HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the partner, as the Mishaleach, as the person who sends us out on our mission. And if we're being sent out on a mission by something, by someone, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu with infinite kochos, so then we have to make use of that. And we have to say that if I'm the shliach, if I'm the messenger, then I'm just like the Mishaleach. And if I'm just like the Mishaleach, then I steal this element of infinitude, so to say, this borrowed notion of more koach, more strength to overcome. That's how I have to start my day. I have to start with the assumption that I can overcome whatever it is that's going to face me. It's going to be one by one by one by one. I'm going to have to address each thing one after the other. But in the end of the day, every thought, every experience, every emotion that I choose to be conscious of, I'm going to be fully present in that. That's the koyach of the Rishimu. But the question is, after we've said Moida Ani Lefanecha Melachai V'Kayam, after we affirm the goodness of ourselves, after we affirm the radical goodness in our capacity to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this moment, to find calmness in this moment, to find presence in this moment, how do we draw down the actual potential of getting through the moment? Okay, so at the beginning of the day, before washing the Tzilas Yadayim, I could say Moida Ani Lefanecha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm clean before you. I'm clean before you. There's nothing wrong. There's no mum. I don't owe anything. Nishmas Yisrael is more than enough. Being a soul in this world is more than enough. Tachlis of Brias Ha'olam is that there should be a soul in a body. We're always more than enough. And when we start our day off with that radical affirmation of Moida Ani Lefanecha Melechai V'Kayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm right in front of you just as you're right in front of me. And in that point of understanding the depth of Pnimius and Yonim, of Moda Ani, I come to a place of Bittul B'Metzius, of Hoda'ah, of a powerlessness that says, you're right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're the true power. And I affirm that place. But then how do we go into natural reality? How do we go into the Halal? The Rishimu doesn't deny the Halal. This is the fundamental secret. The ever-present possibility of all things is hidden. So I'm not aware of that until I'm forced to actualize it. So I'm still operating within the voided nature where I don't have enough koach. And Moda'ani is not the natural reaction to the world, but rather it is the radical revolution against the natural reality of the world. The natural reality of the world would be to look out on the world and not say thank you, but to say thank you, to uncover the shirish of what it means to be a Yehudi, the light of Yehuda, the light of Mashiach ben David, the light of gratitude, which is the light of the future pleasures that will come into our minds in this moment itself, to avert our natural tendency to be despondent or hopeless, and to affirm the gratefulness and the gratitude that we have for the saturation and the wholeness of this moment itself, and the hayohiv of this moment. That Moida'ani is a radical gesture against the natural tendency towards hopelessness that this world induces more often than not. And so what happens next? How do we draw that Moida'ani moment, that all-rightness, that goodness, that calmness, that menuchas emes sha'atar otzeba, that light of beshav galavata teshabchem, that there's a stillness at the heart of the waves, of shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, as the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says, hishta'avos, that light of hishta'avos that I could experience in Moida'ani, where I take my ani, my shlichus in this world, and I give it back to you, the shorish of ayin, and I reveal self and nothingness at the very same time, and that I'm a shliach of absolute nothingness, and I have the kochus of absolute nothingness within me in every step of the way. And I steal that koyach, as the tzaddikim say, gamzu letova is rosh tevos gezel. I have to steal that machshava. But how do we draw it into the rest of the day? And I'm sorry if I'm meandering. I'm trying to hold it on the point, Be'ezras Hashem. And so the answer to this question is what the Arizal brings out. The Arizal says, after the Tzimtzum and after the Rishimu and after this irreducible trace is left and it remains there, it's there and we know we have this unlimited koach, but now we have to learn how to unlock it beyond that first moment of revolution of Moida Ani Lefanecha, of saying, I'm grateful for everything. So the answer that the Arizal gives us based on the Heilige Zohar HaKadosh and all of the Tzaddikim Amitim is the Kav. That after the Or Ein Sof departed and it was concealed over by the Tzimtzum, so there was a Chalal HaPanui, there was a vacant space that appeared to be limited, but in truth was saturated with infinite possibility. But then there needed to be re-entrance of a measurable form of light, not an invisible light, not an irreducible trace that can only be sensed by way of its disappearance and wandering towards it without ever actually grasping it. That light of the Rishimu, that light of the Tzimtzum, which allows us to tap into Soiviv Kalam and everything is fine, but how do I draw it into Memala Kalam, and how do I bring it down into actual feeling something? And so within this Halal HaPanui, which is going to be revealed to be Chayim, the place of life, which is the Gematria of Halal and void, there enters in a kav of light, a kav of infinite light, a ray of the infinite light that was there prior to the departure of the original light. This paradox of all paradoxes, that God reintroduces his infinitude back into finite shape without either one losing its name. The infinite remains the infinite and the finite remains the finite, but through this secret of the Kav, this ray of infinite light that reintroduces itself back into the void that is there after the Tzimtzum, which has the hidden trace of infinite light engraved into it in the secret of the Rishimu. There's a re-entrance of the Kav or Ein Sof, that infinite light from before the Tzimtzum, which re-enters in. And when it re-enters into this voided space, it's very different than the way that it re-entered in. It's no longer an all-saturating, everything revealed type of light that floods the entirety of the possibility of space. Because once the mind has hollowed itself out, and once the original Tzimtzum has taken shape, so to say, the emergence of vessels, the emergence of containers and parts of the mind and parts of the experience of thinking and being, they begin to take shape ever so slightly. As a result of the original Tzimtzum, it's the beginningness of an engraving that will eventually congeal itself into some element of vessels through which the mind can comprehend reality. And so once that original light departed, even when there's a re-entrance of that light back in a measured way, those engravings that have begun to emerge are no longer equalized to the level of infinitude that existed prior to it. So there has been the beginning of shape taking or taking shape, or the soul cultivating itself into a subjective personality. And in this process of the emergence of the kalim, even when there's a re-entrance of an infinite ray of light, it doesn't negate those engravings. It doesn't undo that emergence of shape, but rather there's a new reality. That light of the ever-present possibility is now engaging in practical, focused steps and goals of this moment. And this kav, this ray of infinite light, enters back into the halal. And as the Arizal tells us, it doesn't extend fully downwards back again, because if it went from the beginning to the bottom, then it would undo all measure. But rather, this kav, this ray of infinite light that somehow, some way, by way of absolute impossibility, is taking shape at every moment, this kav of infinitude that expresses itself within the finite, becomes the pipeline, so to say, of infinite possibility expressing itself within the realm of possible impossibility, coming from a place of beyond limitation and allowing that which is beyond limitation to drip into limitation itself, where both are taking shape at once. This is what the Kav represents. The ability to draw down that infinite potential that is hidden and nested away within the Rishimu of the Or Ein Sof, that ever-present possibility, and to draw it down and to funnel it down into a singular point of contact where that ever-present infinite thing which the neshama pulsates with is now being expressed in a measured way, where in this moment I can have bechira. It's a kav, it's a ray, it's a direct line. It's now measured. It's no longer circular. It's no longer all-encompassing. The kav or Ein Sof represents this possibility of gradation and process and encounter. But again, it's not based on scarcity. The kav is a reintroduction of that infinite light by way of the Rishimu, by way of that trace. So it's revealing at every moment that everything is always already revealed. And it's reminding us that the tzimtzum is not kepshuto and that I have infinite koach. But at the same point, it's an infinite koach that has to be drawn down into a particular line. A kav means a line. There's shlosha kavim that begin to emerge, a right, a left, and a center. The secret becomes not one of effulgence or overwhelmingness one way or the other, but rather the secret path of the middle, of Bechira, of the Shvil HaZahav, that doesn't have any way of deviating because it's locked into the center of that Kav that goes all the way up and all the way down from the Omek Tachas to the Omek Rom. And this kav or Ein Sof, it doesn't enter back down all the way. It slowly and steadily schleps itself down one moment to the next. This moment, kav lekav, one after the other, one moment after the other. This and that, and this and that. I'm connecting with this and that. Each moment is a fullness, but it expresses itself in a measured way. It means that any decisions that we begin to make throughout the day, after getting up after Moda'ani, and then going along. We're not up to Netilas Yadayim yet. This is the mindset from Moda'ani to Netilas Yadayim. This kav, this re-entrance of the ray of infinite light that expresses itself, and it renews me with the possibility of chadashim lebekarim rabba emunasecha, that I can have emuna, I could connect myself, and I could be an omein, I can have an artistry as to how I live. I can live as an art. My chayim can be a kiddush Hashem. Person can live al kiddush Hashem, where every moment as a bal bechira, whatever the matzav is, a person can maintain their yishuv hadas and their emuna. This is the ikar tachlis of all things, to maintain das when there is none, to enter into the secret of the reisha delos yada. That happens by way of the kav, this unknowable secret of the introduction of infinite possibility into finite situations. But that's the ontology of it, that's the shape of it, and I'm doing my best to try and be mitzamsem. And we're not gonna there's a chut that surrounds the kav and it holds it in place so that this sustained paradox of infinite possibility within finite space continues to exist at each and every moment. Our ability to draw down from that ever-present Rishimu, which remains concealed in itself, and to draw it out into revelation, one drop after the other. But on a practical level, what does this mean? On a practical level, what does this mean? So we've been through this and we'll continue to go through it. But what this means is that there's a place in the soul, there's a place in the self, which has the ability of drawing down new expressions of infinite capacity in each and every moment. That the kav of the previous moment has to reveal itself anew in the next moment. Because if I use the light of the previous moment, then I must draw out more light of the new moment. Even if I didn't use the light of the previous moment properly, the metzias and the evolution of all things is the perpetual revelation of more and more light. Odio ter tov, more and more light. So everything is always, we have to admit that it's getting better all the time. At each and every moment, it's getting better. And so there's always a new introduction of infinite possibility that emerges from a power beyond ourselves that is available to us at each and every moment. B'chol karenu a love. It's dependent on something. It's dependent on our ability to call out and to acknowledge that we need it. The experience of the soul that draws down a new secretion of infinite light that allows the kav to come back down into experience so that we can make the next right decision and we can push ourselves forward in the next step is through the element of the kav, which is kivui, which is hope, expectation, expectancy, an assumption that even though things feel a certain way, we know intuitively that they can be a different way. The base of the soul of the kav is hope. Hope draws down more and more of the kav because hopelessness or the possibility of hopelessness is what a person feels when they feel that the infinitude that has been enlivening this moment is drying up and that there's not enough left to give me strength for the next moment. And when a person is in between the previous moment's end and the next moment's beginning, there's a ma'avar, there's a gesher tsar ma'od ma'od, where on the one hand, I know that I had koach for the previous moment, but I doubt the capacity to have koach for the next moment. And in that place, there's the chashash of yeush, that bridge which feels like yeush sometimes. God forbid, because we know that yeush isn't real. But in that place of not knowing whether a person has the koyach, what gets tapped into by way of yeyush or beyond it or through it is the secret of kivoy, of hope. And hope is not simply thinking about a future expectation. It's that also. We've spoken about hope so often in the directionality of the future. But what I want to try and share now, Lefyenias Daiti, is the Indian of hope that is rooted far more in the past. That if the Rishimu is the past, if the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's absolute possibility at every moment is the past of this moment, because that's what existed prior to this moment of concealment, that means I have to try and remember the past. I have to try and put the past back together again. And remembering is putting something back together and drawing it from the past into the present moment and giving it a Tchiyas HaMesim. Now, hope is a Tchiyas HaMesim to the degree that I don't know if I'm going to have koyach for the next moment. But I know that I had koyach in the previous moment, even when I felt I couldn't have koyach in the previous moment. And if I found koyach in the previous moment when I thought that I couldn't find koyach in the previous moment, then that belief itself in the possibility of having found hope when there was no hope gives me the ability to have hope right here, right now. And in that way, I'm drawing from a past strength into the present moment where I have none. I'm revealing more of the Rishimu. I'm going back into the Rishimu and squeezing it, Kavyachol, and I'm forcing it to reveal itself more and more. That's the secret of Dorshe Rishumos. The Dorshe Rishumos, those who seek out the trace, are those who are so at a loss because the revealed letters are not doing it. The revealed letters are scrambled in terms of the future. So there's a need to return back to a Torah Kaduma, back to a past saturation of the Rishimu, and that's by way of hope. That in any situation, a person can draw the kav of infinite light down from within the Rishimu itself by way of hoping based on a future based on a past. That I can look back to a place of pure possibility and I can say, Rebbeinu Shalom, in this moment, I can uncover more within myself. I can uncover more possibility. I can draw infinitude back down ever so slightly. To remember the past, to yearn for the past, to uncover a secret of a kav, of drawing something from a past back into the present, based on a knowledge that I can, and I can move forward in this moment, and I can draw down enough infinite light to be present and to have another moment of goodness and calmness. So this expresses itself by way of hope. That a person doesn't have to have a reason for hope. A reason for hope, a reasonable hope is future-oriented. A hope based in the past is an unreasonable hope because it doesn't make sense. The fact that something happened in the past doesn't mean that it will happen in the future. The possibility of expecting that something that hasn't happened yet will happen in the future, that makes sense. That's a hope towards a future event. But a hope of for the now based on something that happened in the past is a stubborn ignorance of rationality, because what good does it do that something happened in the past? What does that say about right now? But the secret of hope based on the past is that by way of hoping based on the past, I uncover the light of the past and I draw it down into the present moment. It's a segula. To have hope when I have no reason to have hope, to have stubborn hope based on no reasonable hope, but rather a hope that is built upon hope itself, based on the very fact that hope itself is the mechanism that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to reveal within the self, that draws down the Kav or Ein Sof more and more into ourselves. By way of entering into hope, especially when it's unreasonable, is where I'm going to be tapping into the truest expression of hope. Hope doesn't work because it makes sense. Hope works because it's a mechanism that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has placed at the very core of the soul, at the bottom and at the top, that has the ability of koyve Hashem yachlifu koyach. It has the ability of changing the order of strength, of drawing down more koyach. Koyach ma'asav higid liyamu l'teit lehem nachlas goyim. Every moment of not knowing is a nachlas goyim, a moment of being away from Eretz Yisrael. But koyach ma'asav higid liyamu, to draw down more koyach. Of yasher koyach asher shibarta, that at that place a person has the ability of drawing more koyach through hope. Yachlifu koyach, we recharge ourselves, we uncover the secret of more. This is what Rabbi Nachman describes in the secret of Reish Pei Beis, where we have to find the Nakuda Tova in every moment. The Nakuda Tova exists not because it exists because we stubbornly demand and we assume that it exists. It existed in the past and it has to exist now as well. I'm not basing my Nakuda Tova on what's going to be in the future. The Nakuda Tova is based fundamentally on the past. I can look back into the past and dissect the past down to the very bone, where I can uncover the secret of goodness that rests at the heart of all things. It's what reveals more. Ode, to reveal more goodness within ourselves, to reveal the moreness, to reveal the capacity of the individual to find more goodness based on nothing other than the radical belief in goodness. This uncovers the Nakuda Tova. By judging the other favorably, by judging ourselves favorably, by judging HaKadosh Baruch Hu favorably, by saying yes to the moment, by drawing the light of Moda'ani by way of hope based on the fact of what my wins were in the past, and the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with me in the past, it draws down more light. It's segula. And this is the ability to find more and more Nakudas Tovos. To find more and more Nakudas Tovos is to draw down more and more koyach for me to face the next moment with calmness. And that's the avodah. To uncover that menucha, the tainug of menucha, to be matayil in Gan Eden, to wander to and fro in this world with all of its thisness and thatness and all of the ups and the downs and the rights and the lefts, but to connect to the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, to connect to the shemos themselves, to attach ourselves to Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, to contemplate the Shem Havaya, to think about Yud, K, Vav, K, the shape of it, the impossibility of thinking a shape of it, to attach ourselves to these ancient technologies of attaching ourselves to that which always was, that past which is always rooted in the perpetual unfolding of that which is right now, the Shem Havaya, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. When we uncover more Nekudas Tovos, we open ourselves up to see more. Yeah, I don't know if there was a pause in the video, but I hope we got the first half. There's a moreness, there's an od yoter tov, there's more to be revealed. That's the koyach of kivoy, that I can push on through this moment, I could push on through this limit, I can transform the mania into something that's pleasant. I have the koach. And this hope, this drush hakivoy, this searching after hope, this uncovering of the moreness that rests at the base of ourselves at any moment we so choose, it comes about by way of a posturing that faces each moment with a recognition that Hashem, I can't do it without you. I can't do it without you. I can't do this without you. As the Heilige Zushia explains so clearly to us in our generation. I can't do this without you. I need to uncover more hope. I need to uncover something from a place of moreness, and I don't have hope for the future yet. I don't have that koyach. That demands koyach. That needs to be based on something. But a hope based in the past is unreasonable, and that I can do. That I can have Mesiras Nefesh for. And that Mesiras Nefesh, that recognition in each and every moment that says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I can't do this without you. I need you. I look up to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I look up to you and I draw down koach from within a place of hopelessness, from within a place of powerlessness, from within a place of bitul muchletas, from within a place of going down into the place of nahi, going back into a place of almost like an ibor b'mei imo, like a child who depends upon its mother, oichel mimashe imo yecheles, drawing down a light of motherly illumination from a place of bina, where bina opens up and it draws itself down into the moment and illuminates Malchus. It's the teva of Noach in the midst of a Mabul. That is what Kivoy draws down. It gives us the ability to be present. And it comes about by way of a recognition that I can't do this without you, Ribono Shel Olam. I need you to give me more koyach each and every moment. Each and every moment. I thought to myself many times over the last few weeks, and I told it over to somebody, but a joke or a strange tale that I heard as a kid, and it was one of these things that was repeated in Stiebels. I don't remember where I heard it, but that there was a person who was walking around with headphones, and they always had their headphones on, and they went to the barber and they said, when you give me a haircut, please don't take off these headphones. Please don't take off these headphones, because the moment you take off these headphones, I'm going to die. Please don't take off these headphones. And the person falls asleep in the barber chair. And the barber, assuming that he didn't actually mean what he meant, he took off the headphones as he was asleep to give him a haircut. And lo and behold, in the story, the person passed away. The barber was astonished, and he put on the headphones to hear what it said. And what he heard was, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. It's the same Indian with Kivoy. Every moment it takes so much strength to redraw down more dosages of light, more dosages of hope. Hope after hope after hope after hope. And this awareness of powerlessness is the hamshacha of the kav, down, down, down. More and more light saturates when there's bittul. When a person relinquishes control, they uncover a secret of more power than they could have ever conceived, the power greater than themselves, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The kav, or in sof kav yachol, is maskala again within nishmas Yisrael kav yachol, as the Ramchal teaches us. And the Ramchal, Rabbeinu HaRamchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, drawing the light of Moshe into the Halal, drawing that light of Yesod Da'aba, of Kivoy, into the Halal. It's all about Kivoy. Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. There's a hopefulness that is revealed at the edge of hopelessness, that doesn't draw its strength from a future expectation, but rather from a past knowledge beyond knowledge, from a past that is so certain in itself, from Atik Yoimin, from ancient days, from a place far beyond possibility, that a person has the capacity of squeezing and secreting and drawing down more chalav, more libi chalal b'kirbi, more expression, more illumination, and each and every shlav, each and every step draws more and more kivoy into it. When you look at the word kivoy, it's a kuf, it's a yud, it's a small expression, it's a vav, it's a vav, it's a yud. It goes up and down like waves. It's the b'shav galavata teshabchem, the giloy after giloy after giloy of hashgacha pratis, which is the secret of the kav, that Hashem re-enters his expression into our lived experience, where we can see him. Where we can say, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo, I saw this, I knew this, the kivoy that Rabbeinu says is the secret of revealing that what I have now is what I had then is always what it was going to be. Yeshuascha kivisi Hashem, in that place of hopelessness. And Rabbeinu HaRamchal, we know, goes through this. And again, there's never not a good time. There's never not a good time to read from the words of the Heilige Drush B'inyan HaKivoy. Everything I wanted to say I expressed, and now I just want to try and translate the words freely from Rabbeinu HaRamchal to describe the fundamental nature of what we're talking about, and how hope is born from within this place of not having any koach. And it's specifically there that more and more koach comes out. The secret of Moshe Rabbeinu by Ve'eschanan, where every ounce of encountering a tendency of hopelessness, he returned back to the Matnas Chinam over and over, drawing down more and more grooves of entry points where we're going to be able to enter back into Eretz Yisrael. Zak the Heilige Ramchal, the drush with regards to the matter of hope. The Yeshuasa Kivisi, towards your salvation, I hope. The beginning of creation takes place by way of hope, that all that which existed below is yearning for that which is being revealed above by way of prayer or by way of song. In the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world by way of Elokim, din, simsum, removal. There's no beginning other than hope. There's no simsum other than to create the possibility of expectation that the ray of infinite light should enter back into it. And this ray of infinite light, Lashon Kivoy V'Tshuka, the ray is a language of hopefulness and yearning desire. Come and see. All of creation was created incomplete, as it says that God created them by way of severity. that afterwards that they should fulfill themselves through a certain strength, that they should engage in the process of self-becoming by way of hope, whether through good actions or prayer or song. That the Shekhinah, God's presence in this world, beginning in the very beginning, emerges as the possibility of deficiency without wholeness. In the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the sense of deficiency. And the beginning of creation is fear, and there's no fear other than in a place of deficiency, which is a place of need. And if there's no need, and a person doesn't need anybody else, then there's no need to fear anybody else. So we see that everything is emergent from this reality of deficiency. The beginning of the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence was to create a sense of fear and emergent anxiety from within deficiency so that hopefulness can be drawn down from above. And this is what it means when we say Hashem Hu Elokim, that God is the expression of himself within concealment as well. They're the same exact thing, the hope and the response that comes about by way of the unreasonable hope in a past, which is the Atik Yomin, which draws down more and more light. Ki hakol echad, everything is one. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted it to come about first and foremost in this way. All growth stood at the opening of the ground prior to actual emergence because there needed to be a human being to daven, to recognize the deficiency. The moon receives from the sun just as truth emerges from the ground and righteousness comes from above, that there is an emergence of a vitality from above and it's waiting for hope down below. It needs hope down here to open up the passageways. That hope itself opens up all of the blockages. A true element of hope, tikvas emes shu bitachon shel emes shaboitchin bahashkacha. Tikvas emes shu habitachon shel emes shaboitchin bahashkacha. Tikvas emes shu habitachon shel emes shaboitchin bahashkacha. The truth of hope and a true form of hope, which is the truth of trusting in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in our lives, the yichud of hashkacha. Every other form of trust, every other form of trust in the hishtadlus that we do is a trust, a false trust. The hishtadlus is not what's false, the trust in the hishtadlus. Only bitachon Hashem, trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is hope, is something that's true. As it's written, V'yadata ki ani Hashem, asher lo yoveshu koivai. I am HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the hopefulness towards me is not going to ever go dry. And Hashem doesn't lie. And if we don't see it yet, then we have to be patient. As the Rebbe Rashab says, that patience is the hope that emerges at the edge of hopelessness as well. So we wait in the secret of the Yeshuasat Kivisi, and unbeknownst to us, the secret of Kivui is already doing its work. It's already happening. The Gilo is already there. Somehow, some way, more Kayach emerges. It's the hope. It's the hope in this world and the next world. It's the hope of the impoverished individual that will never be lost. L'shuascha kivisi Hashem, Hashem, your name I hope towards, nothing else, only to you, nothing else. My hope goes directly to you, Hashem. Hope is the secret of the expansion, the re-entrance of infinite light back into the secret of the situation, the kav hamishpat, more and more capacity to face this world with koyach. A circle has no beginning and no end. The hope comes about specifically by way of the beginning and the end. Somebody who is in a state of hope, will be in a state of joy and gladness without pain, without suffering. The pain will avada be there. There's pain in this Welt. Rahman al-Itzlan, there's pain in this Welt, and all of us should be poiter atatzmeinu from any element of pain. Tachlis hayisurin. Someone who's in a state of hope is in a state of a joy without suffering. Because someone who's mitztayer, someone who's suffering internally, always is in a state of broken spiritedness and sighing about hopelessness. They feel that there's no cure for them. But someone who's in a state of perpetual hope never is in a state without a cure, because at least they have hope. All they have is hope. And even if it hasn't emerged yet, they still have more and more hope to give. That the hope itself is what's giving them life. Nimsa hatikva machaya also. And someone who doesn't have tikva miyad meis, v'nishar rachuk me Hashem, if we let go of hope for a second, we lose out. We lose out. The only punishment we have ultimately is when we didn't have hope. Because someone who has hope, it says, Gam ki eshev b'choyshech Hashem orli. In this choyshech of the halal where I don't have koyach, Hashem reveals His light. The kav orient sof comes down to me. Havaya daika, shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, lishchasa kivisi Hashem. A person who hopes, it removes any need to base their strength on their actions. It doesn't matter what you've done. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who's going to answer up for those who hope to Him. And that's why it's the impoverished person, specifically the powerless individual, has the most hope. And someone who has impoverishment in the way that they function in this world, so at least they always have hope, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals Himself, and it's ma'aver kol ha'psha'im by way of tikva. This is the end of the tikkun. that as a result, Migoyedel Tikvas Kol Yisrael Ba'oirech Hagalus Uboitchem Be'emuna Sheyigalu. The end of the rectification is from the strength of the hope of Bnei Yisrael as a result of the extension of the Galus and Ad Masai, and the truth of Boitchem Be'emuna Sheyigalu. The Sof HaTikva, and the end of hope is Umashtias Avon Haaretz, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets rid of the inequity. Lishwatza kivisi, to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kizeu kavod hamelech sheboitchem bo. You love us because we trust in you. It's kavod to you that we trust in you. Ba Chabakuk v'hamad al achas. Emuna, tikva, faith, hope. Hamekave afilu nichnas begehenim yotzim imenu. Someone who has hope, when they enter into hell, they come out of it. As it says, Kaveh Hashem yachlifu koyach yavel ever. Mi yiteni ever kayoina, the koyach of oina, the koyach of the yona within each and every one of us, to go back to Moshe Rabbeinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends his light upon us. And all of the malachim come down to the person who's hoping, the Aver and the Sharim, and they create winds. And they take them out of wherever the person is stuck in. V'tikvaso hitaraso. V'tikvaso hitaraso. And the hope itself is the purification process. Hope, mikvah Yisrael mamish, the mikvah is hope. When a person is in a state of hope, there's no concealment. There's no concealment. It's not about what I've done or what I don't do. I'm relying on this person who sent me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That tshuva is a return back to the source of drawing more koach from a past into the future, to open up more space, to return back to Hashem over and over. And concealment can't grab a person like that. And that's how Bnei Yisrael return back to Hashem. Because someone who's in a state of hope, boike bekav tikvaso, our rays of hope, open up openings that did not exist. And it creates a hole and a puncture in concealment so that we can ascend directly up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is revealed, that's where Chesed is revealed, which is Choyka Toiv Lahetiv, in the secret of Hashgacha Pratis, Toiv Lamatam Yasar Tvachim, and there's no pegam that blocks. Someone who hopes in their life will also hope in the future. And they'll strengthen themselves in their hope over and over, and all of the concealment will be gone in a moment. Lishuascha kivisi. It doesn't say that I'm going to have hope. It says, I hope right now, right now. When tzaddikim are in pain, Ima Yanechi B'tzara, the Shechina Kavyachol is in pain. But B'koyach HaTikva Yotzim in Atzara. It's the strength of hope that takes us out of concealment. Kavyachol Yotzim Imo. And when we get out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes out. As it says in Mitzrayim, Yatsu Kol Tzavos Hashem Ima Shechina. Everything comes out. Everything returns. Lishvascha kivisi, lishvascha mamish, to your salvation. Yeshuas Hashem sheyeh imo b'tzara. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal himself, that he was there with us in concealment at every moment. Kivisi Hashem lishuascha. Come and see that tzaddikim, when they raise up their tefillos to the ears of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol, when they daven to Hashem, when they scream to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but when there's great concealment in the world and there's blockages and their tefillos are blocked, there's a light of the sukkah that's blocking. But the tzaddikim who have hope, they have the ability to make a nesiv and a bakia b'toicha anonim, to create a pathway directly towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol yored l'shmoya tefilasa mipiv shalem makava. And it's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to hear the tefillah from he who hopes. In the secret of kaveh kivisi Hashem v'yat elai v'yishma shavasi. What am I hoping for, Hashem? That reveal yourself by the Shem Havaya. Give me the ability to be present in this moment. And don't let the concealment block it. We should be zoicha to do this in ourselves. We should be zoicha to do this as a people. We should be zoicha to do this in our homes, in our own hearts, at every moment, and to start again each and every moment. The kav, it goes further and further and further down until it comes down to the bottom to reveal that all of the concealment is exactly as revealed as the top was, as the Leshem says and the Rashab says. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should have more and more hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us koyach for more and more hope, Be'ezras Hashem.